We had similar votings, but because of the time constraints, we're not going to do voting. However, I'll prefer that if we can have a very open-ended conversation like we had for the big data session. So I have just two parts of the presentation. One, what do we mean by information security? What is cyber security? What's happening in the world? And second, how organizations can address this risk. A very plain, simple, vanilla agenda. However, prior to getting in, I do want to give you a glimpse of how consumers will communicate and what will happen in year 2020. Mind you, this video was shot almost 3 years back, but it's extremely relevant and it gives us some kind of a glimpse how things will be in 2020. Maybe from a developed economy perspective, in India you can definitely look at about 2025, how it will be, and think of security and privacy from that standpoint right from today.
Where people cannot manage their life without the internet and its applications, even when they're aware that their privacy and security is totally out of control. Let's see what a day looks like. As you can see, a lot of information is directly available. Your virtual assistant has already started arranging the upcoming birthday party. Numerous brands know this and start showing their product offerings in an intrusive way. Your health is constantly monitored, which leads to advice about nutrition. Not only your own health is monitored, but also that of your family. When a family member is ill, your virtual assistant provides you with a list of doctors, including medical professionals from all over the world, offering their services. Without remorse, advertisers promote all kinds of medical products. Real-time medical information is shared. You need to decide yourself, but to distinguish trustworthy objective medical advice from ordinary pharmaceutical ads is a tough job. Your refrigerator shows you which of your favorite products need replenishment and orders them directly. The manufacturer presets store preferences in the system of your refrigerator. You can only order from those stores that have links with the manufacturer of your refrigerator, limiting your choice of products and stores. Even when you set your preferred store in the system, other stores try to persuade you to buy from them. In case you cannot go into the office, your virtual assistant rearranges your agenda. Office meetings are turned into online meetings. As bandwidths and scarce frequencies are not used efficiently, congestion often occurs, making online meetings less reliable. The birthday planner of your virtual assistant checks the availability of your friends and family real-time to set the date and time for the party. The same brands that pushed their products earlier continue to attract your attention. The uncle who has just received the invitation contacts you from his office. He wants to share his ideas about birthday presents with you. Together, you shop virtually for the ideal present for him to give. All sorts of products are pushed aggressively, even those that are not appropriate for a young boy. Later that day, when he goes home, his car contacts his house to announce his arrival. Utility companies use customer information to optimize their operations, but do not share these benefits with their customers. When the car approaches his home, the lights in the house are automatically switched on. Meanwhile, it is bedtime for the little one. You open the virtual bookshelf on which publishers all try to stand out, making it difficult for him to find his favorite bedtime story. Candy manufacturers know immediately that you're reading a bedtime story and put their commercials directly onto the images related to the story. So now you know what a day will look like in 2020. But remember, this is just one of the possible scenarios. The world could also look completely different. Challenge yourself. and take a look at the complete opposite scenario. Speed limit control.
So what's your general view about this video?
Will happen much before 2020.
Will happen much before 2020?
Yes.
What else did you notice? Something which either you like it, it disturbs you, something which you think is absolutely? Nothing is private.
You have no control over your life, essentially.
You have no control over your life, or everyone else is reading what you're doing in your life. What else? So as a companies, as a retail organization, as a utility organization, it's tremendous to make, right, from this data, using a lot of big data analytics. But from a consumer standpoint, there are major and very significant challenges. And while you can make sense of it, there is a huge security and privacy concern that will guide you. What Jasjit spoke about, the target issue of pregnancy, and many such issues that we will talk during this presentation will only open up our eyes and ask us to take notice of security and privacy, which I believe has been ignored a lot of, especially with the sectors that we come from. So before I delve into again security, I want to ask a question. How many of you have seen a movie called Die Hard 4? A lot many. I just want to pick up a small snippet of 40-45 seconds of that and run this for everyone's benefit. I've just removed audio for the second. What do you think of this video?
Fortunately, it's not going to happen in India. These are all research, not network.
But we'll speak about that. This is an extension of this video, which I did not show you the scene to, where someone was able to push in the complete natural gas into the power plant and direct everything to that plant so that the plant exploded.
Siddharth, sorry, but you remember that huge all India thing which happened because of some shutdown in Assam or somewhere? So what are you saying? That is North India. North India. Grid failure. Grid failure.
So just one point I want to make is IT is not the corporate IT that we're talking about anymore. The operational technologies, the MESs, the SCADAs, the various PLCs, industrial control systems, whatever we have in the organization, the danger to the human life, danger to all of us, to the businesses can wipe out if something like this can happen, right? And it's not just a film that we have seen. Have you heard of Stuxnet?
Yeah, we spoke about it this morning.
Oh, there was a discussion about this in the morning. It's real, right? And Iran's nuclear, 20% of their nuclear, and you know what they did using that? They just through a USB, somehow that malware moved in. There was no way to check that. And over a period of about 6, 8, 9 months, it spread. And about 60% of Iran's computers were affected by that. That malware was able to change the rotor speed in the centrifuge.
Variable frequency drive, it took control of that.
And they exploded. We have to take notice. This is something which is not anymore in the film or what we see in the various movies. It's something which is reality, and all of us will have to probably take notice of this. With this backdrop, I want to start off our presentation on information security. You know, traditionally we always looked at hacker as someone who is doing it for fun's sake, right? That's how the whole hacking concept started. As we have seen, it is moved on, it is kind of evolved, matured. The whole process of hacking is no longer an individual does it for fun. It started moving for a monetization, then it became a corporate espionage, someone is insider or someone is trying to use that to gain, for again, financial benefits for the company. And now, the entire aspect of hacking is moved to a state-sponsored attacks. So this is all public information. Iran, Israel and US are blamed, whatever happened through Stuxnet, right? What happened at Sony? Korea's, right? So if you see, look at the gravity. And on this backdrop, I just want to quickly ask you about RSA. Have you heard of a company called RSA?
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest security company. Yeah. And what happened to RSA? Are you aware of the incident that happened in RSA? So about 2011, through a small phishing attack, RSA was hacked. RSA, you know, is one of the company which has almost a monopoly on two-factor authentication, using secure ID tokens. So algorithms which run behind those tokens were stolen. I will definitely use this and also tell you what are the various fundamental security gaps that typically were exploited. But the thing is, RSA was not hacked for the sake of hacking RSA. You know, the real motive was to attack US government's defense functions and defense systems. They could not go there. So they looked around using social engineering, using various techniques. They identified Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is one of the major suppliers to US defense. So they wanted to attack Lockheed Martin. For Lockheed Martin, they realized that they use a RSA secure ID based VPN remote access. That's how they went to RSA. All I'm trying to say is, this is no longer a situation where what is there for me from me, I will not get hacked. I mean, we all have to realize it, come what may, we are getting hacked at this moment, and whatever we may say, we cannot escape from that. Have you heard of Target? We heard of Target about the privacy issue. I'm sure all of you would have heard of the 40 million credit card records stolen from Target in December 2013. So I want to slowly give you the complete anatomy of what happened there, and then let us try and dissect each of those areas and figure out what could have gone wrong, what could have prevented that from happening. So this attack happened it was discovered in the month of December 2013, but the real POS machines, the malware on the POS machines, we started stealing this, almost started in the month of November. And how this happened is extremely interesting, and all of us should start picking up threads from there. So there was a company, I don't recollect the name, Fazio, was a company in Pennsylvania who was HVAC provider to our Target for managing refrigeration units at the stores. And so through social engineering networks, this individuals or group of individuals or state, whomsoever it was, they identified this particular vendor who supplies it to Target, who manages this for Target. How? Public information. They had access to Target supplier portal. You know, it's very easy to find on Facebooks and LinkedIn's and various other social sites. Some of this information is easily available. They can do a Google and find out what are the various topology of the Target uses. And mind you, this is nothing to say a blame Target, just to pick up some lessons for all of us. So this HVAC company was picked up by this hacking team and was targeted through a phishing attack. And someone pushed a malware to HVAC company in their systems and then stole passwords. And these passwords were of a system called Ariba. All of us have heard Ariba? So Target uses Ariba for external billing. And in their entire aspect of interconnectedness, extended enterprise, I need to collaborate with suppliers, I need to collaborate with my distributors. They had given access to this system which was on their perimeter, that is, it was exposed to internet for all their vendors and basically vendors to use and get the billing transactions executed through that. So through this means they stole passwords at the HVAC company, used Ariba to get into Target. Now this Ariba system is on internet facing, the so-called DMZ as we call it. It was in the demilitarized zone. However, using that channel, they were able to get inside Target's internal sensitive network. Once inside, they were able to pick up some make some of the local servers as their conduit to move around onto the network. Through a normal user, they would have gone using Ariba, and they also used BMC software as an ITSM tool, right? Just like HP and IBM's and ServiceNow's, all of you use a lot of for help desk and ticketing side. So BMC software's ITSM tool was used as a conduit once they were on the network, and the default IDs, passwords not changed. You know how simple this is that all of us take it for granted. Passwords were not changed. They were able to use that, move further deep into the network, go to the POS level, and install a malware there. This malware, there is a concept of RAM scrapping. Before it moves through an encrypted traffic, once you swipe a credit card, during this, while it's in memory, someone can read this. Picked up that data, created a conduit, a small server within target's network to capture all of these, pass it on to a hosting service provider where this data was collated, and then passed on outside the country. So they collected 11 GB of data in a period of 20 days. Out of that, they were they actually used that as a conduit, and they had almost entire US POS machines under their belt. And this data was stolen. Target was not aware of it. US government intimated them sometime early mid-December, and then the whole episode, they came to their light and they started investigating, removed that malware from the system. And obviously it was a large battle for them to deal with consumers who would have gone through, someone would have used the credit cards, because this information is so vital. You can sell it for $20, $40, and think of 40 million credit card details. This is the whole anatomy of what happened in Target, right? Let's just look at each stage what happened. First, if you look at the HVAC, phishing, a classic issue of employees not being aware what should they click, what should they not click, right? If they would have had a simple fundamental thing of employee awareness, or having a simple malware, anti-malware kind of a product inside, they were using a open source based freeware malware tool which did not catch this. Having a simple security monitoring could have at least raised alarms. These guys were in that HVAC company's network for 2.5 months, and there was no way anyone could find that out unless people traced it from Target to them. So simple security monitoring could have at least raised an alarm, some alert, which someone could have taken notice, right? So basic fundamental 101 of information security, you will always find is the main root cause or the conduits that people use to actually steal information, have financial loss for you, or whatever that there's a motive is. Ariba, a classic case, Target dealing with a vendor. Why can't they have a simple thing called as a two-factor authentication? The moment you talk of extended enterprise, you can no longer have much control over what you can have within your network. So simple things like they could have easily implemented a two-factor authentication by which the guys, even if they would have had a password, they would have had to pass one more level of authentication. That is another control which we believe, looking at the investigation, it is a very simple thing, but how these simple things can cause huge damage for the organization. Next comes Ariba on the demilitarized zone. I mean, demilitarized zone was just my concept of explaining that it's an internet-facing application. Can someone use that conduit to move inside to your sensitive zones? You have not done information classification. You have not done separating your sensitive zones, call it virtual networks, you call it separate subnets, whatever. Isolating wherever your critical information resides. If that isolation as a simple control would have been done, some of these hackers would have taken much longer to do that. We are not saying that hacker would not have penetrated that, but it would have taken much longer. And the most...
For business requirement, you have to make the connection between the DMZ server and the private servers.
No, I understand. All I'm saying is the firewall which sits in between, how robust its configuration is. How robust are we actually? And the classic thing, Target is PCI DSS certified. Unfortunately, Ariba is a system which is so different from a PCI scope of work, it was not covered in the scope of work. You know how often we say I am ISO 27000 certified, but we only certify IT, we don't certify any other function.
No, so were they storing the credit card data? They were not. It was while the card
It was picked up from memory.
Yeah.
Before it gets encrypted and goes through the pipe, it was picked up at that point in time. Target had a security monitoring product from a company called FireEye. We've heard of FireEye.
Yeah.
It's in the news. I mean, they have some fantastic products. Right from day one, when that first malware moved in, FireEye raised alarms. FireEye has an ability to delete such content immediately. It was not configured to delete. It raised an alarm, but monitoring team did not take notice of this, saying it's a false alarm. You receive many alarms during a day. There's an information overload, so it's a false alarm. Some of those controls failed. Once they were, obviously I spoke of default IDs not changing their passwords. It's a very simple internal basic security control which typically, again, a lot of companies take it for granted and don't really change. That was another level of weakness that probably could have affected them. A lot of times we look at our network from an external threat perspective. Anyone cannot come inside, but whomsoever is inside can do anything. He can actually do anything. How could this hacker use an internal server to FTP that data, 11 GB of data, to a server which is an hosting service provider, and later on it's moved to Russia? So can you not monitor, can you not use a whitelisting concept that you only allow certain type of traffic? So some of these, my intention was to kind of walk you through that the basic 101 of information security is not followed, and a lot of times it's very easy to say that I have done an attack and penetration testing, but and everything is fine. The problem is our attack and penetration testing exercises are very asset driven. I have checked this firewall, I have checked this router, I have done this server, I have done this database, I have scanned done port scan of all my server landscape in the organization. But if you see, the whole landscape itself is changing. The whole concept is moved from an asset centricity to an information centricity. He would go on till he finds that data, till he finds what he came looking for, and he will use any means, any mechanisms to ultimately get that data. And this is what has now kind of we call it as an advanced persistent threat. Hackers are no longer interested to come and go. They will come back, they will persist, they will stay till they find information, they'll go back and they'll again use the same channel to come back. It's our duty to ensure that we have enough set of controls to take a look, enough set of controls to kind of monitor, and the biggest thing is, if there is an incident, I should be aware of it as early as I can. The whole detection concept, and I have a strong incident response process by which I am able to quickly take actions rather than wait for something else to happen. So Sony was quick. RSS case I explained, right? It was a phishing attack. You know, it's a very simple. They targeted using Facebook, identified focused HR individuals in the organization and sent a spear phishing attack. A spear phishing is a very focused phishing with known individuals with a title 2011 recruitment plan, an Excel file. RSS systems are so good that this went into junk folder. It did not stay in the normal inbox. Still, it was written in such a wonderful way that some guy had an ability to kind of open that. And that Excel file attached had a Adobe Flash 0-day vulnerability, which was not known earlier. Through that, it inserts a code, it has a conduit, the machine becomes an administrator, you start escalating privileges, get into the network, and take whatever information you want. RSA was able to discover this, which according to me is a victory of a company. They were able to discover and quickly address, which according to me is a very wonderful thing, and I think we should applaud RSA for that. Being a security company, of course, they would have had a number of such products at their disposal. All of us may not have such products at our disposal. All the point I'm trying to drive is there is nothing called as information security anymore. There is nothing called as cyber security anymore. Everything is so interconnected. You know, because we start dealing with, we have a distributor management system where distributors can access, we have further customer connects, we have portals to access, we have vendor-side collaboration systems, and the whole social media, mobility, everything is making it so interconnected. And there is nothing called as an internal threat or external threat anymore. It's a threat is a threat. Any questions?
Yeah, today in the morning, actually, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we spoke about one of the challenges, you know, and one that was highlighted was cyber security attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from a power utility, CSC, and mentioning that, you know, we are integrating classical IT and operational IT with classical IT. That's the process IT with the classical IT, which in turn is connected to the internet. So therefore makes our system that much more vulnerable and risky. So we are appointing a third empaneled IT security auditor, and we found Ernst and Young to be one of them in that list. The Ministry of Power has listed all the third empaneled authorized, and I think Ernst and Young is there in that list, right? You should it? Yeah.
Yes, we are, sir.
So so we are in the process of compiling an RFP, and we will be circulating to the shortlisted vendors to carry out a comprehensive IT security audit, for our entire IT ecosystem, because it's just not confined to classical IT. It is the SCADA, the distribution management system, the outage management system, the metadata management system. All that is dovetailed with the classical IT, the ERP, the GIS, and all of it. So it's a very complex diagram. I don't think we have time, otherwise I would have requested Shomo to project that one slide I had showing our entire ecosystem which is exposed to the internet, and how do we address this, because we are getting sleepless nights, and particularly with Stuxnet, after that incident happening, it's very frightening and scary. And this itself is a mammoth task. Somebody certifying, somebody who has the requisite expertise and skill to carry out a comprehensive IT security audit of this landscape, and then come up with a certification saying that this is a bulletproof and this is foolproof. Because security is, it's an evolving journey.
It is.
It's a journey, not a destination. So it's happening all the time. So therefore, we are very keen to have this entire IT landscape audited by a very competent agency who has the requisite skill sets to do it.
Sure, sir. I think you brought a very right point, that we no longer wants to do just a corporate IT, but include the operational technologies, as we call it, into the scope and do an assessment. A lot of times this assessments, nothing to do with this case, but my experience says that it comes out with such a recommendation which is impossible to modify or plug in your PLCs. The PLC monitoring system software, a lot of times those SCADAs, you can't do much about it. If it's a Siemens machine, for instance, there's limitations to which you can address it. So the real challenge,
exactly, that's a real challenge. But we will have to come out with some solution. If you see this in classical IT things, we can make it code review also, because this is the perimeter security and all these things is not a big issue. Big issue is the code vulnerability, this SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and all these things. Okay, so these applications we can make a thorough audit. What for this? Say the SCADA system, the Siemens system, this SCADA system, they have this spectrum. So what is the vulnerability in the spectrum? If the Siemens says my system is secure, your system will be secure, but it has to be certified by third party.
correct.
So that coordination or something, you see this, all this for this OT system, number of things, Arino may have system, Siemens may have the system. So for particularly auditing this type of this application software, there must be the certified bodies there,
Correct.
which this OEM should accept. So OEM should allow, okay, my system will be audited by team, he is the competent authority, and because as this is an online system, during running of the tools and all these things, so this company is giving a guarantee, nothing will happen. This is the main thing, because on this system I cannot stop.
Sir, one challenge I say is, when they certify, when the time of procurement or installation or commissioning process, what are the vulnerabilities which open up? Because they are finding your 0-day vulnerabilities. What comes up after a year and a half, we will not.
The certification in this security journey is meaningless.
It indeed is. It's not done in a true sense.
Since it is a journey, so every day is a challenge. So this somebody will tell, see, today you are safe, tomorrow you don't know.
Correct.
Okay. So this by running these tools and all these things, and by simulation or something, they should show us that your system today is not vulnerable to any attack. So this type of confidence the auditor should have.
I agree, and I have a simple slide on that. What my recommendation for everyone is, in terms of a simple 8-point activities that we must carry out. Just coming back to your question, whenever you appoint any agency or whatever process you adopt for, Apart from audit and assessments, there will be recommendations, as I was saying, which may not be implemented from a prevention standpoint. So look at that agency who can, and also include in your scope, that they will be able to give you peripheral monitoring or any other mechanisms to achieve the same objective. So those recommendations can play a role. For example, I may not be able to prevent or make any changes to my PLC, but can I adopt or can I use any kind of a detection mechanism that something goes wrong, I'll be able to find that out, and can I address. So try and achieve those aspects as part of your RFP for basically benefit, your own benefit, and this may have to be done on a continuous basis, if not one time. The parts of it which are more risk focused, risk oriented from your organization, probably you will have to, like you mentioned, it is a journey, it's not a destination or start or end point, it's something, is a journey where all of us will have to mature through that entire process. I've just listed down few why did such kind of attacks happen, and you will realize while there is an APT, while there is a zero-day attack, a lot of these are common sense, simple things which we all can prevent. Just want to touch upon few other points. This was a survey that we did in India of about 200 companies, and one major point which came up, which surprised me a lot, and now I started believing it the more I see, the more I talk to people, is employee unawareness is one of the major challenges an organization face. They find vulnerabilities are fine at the technology layer, I can address, I can do something about it, but my employee doing something inadvertently without any motive, he just does it because he's not aware of certain security implications of it, is one of the major risks. A lot of times, few other challenges is I do not really have a documented ISMS. If I have a documented information security management system or IS policies, they are restricted to IT. They are not, they do not cover the core business critical areas, and those are the aspects we'll cover. And this is a classic diagram. What can be the most likely source of a security incident? And this is a survey of about 2,000 worldwide companies. And almost unanimous, they talk about employees or contractors as two major weak links. We're not saying that they have a motive, it's just that being unaware, they can take some actions, they can do certain things like clicking on a simple email, which can cause damage to us. There are many stories. It's very easy to put something on Facebook. If a CEO of a company puts something on his Facebook, he's visiting a remote area in Assam, just for a hypothetical case, a compet can look at and say this is looking for this target. So those kind of sensitive information can get divulged unknowingly, something which we don't really think about when we are publishing information. A very disturbed, disgruntled employee or someone who has had a bad performance appraisal, it's very easy to put disturbing comments and damage the reputation of the company and open and divulge something more which someone else can make sense of it and come back to you or haunt you. I will skip this slide for want of time. Just want to spend a little more time. We've spoken of the fundamental security, we've spoken of the typical APTs related matters. These are some major mega trends that we see as an organization impacting global world. So some of the areas that we have enough spoken of is exposure to internal threats and persistence of cybercrime. Let's quickly look at few others, and consumerization is one area where I believe there is a significant risk or threat for the organizations. The more mobile devices we use, so out of SMAC, the social mobility part of analytics will fit under consumerization, because IT is becoming consumers. A lot of organizations, I say, start talking to app store. They don't call it my installation folder, they call it as an app store. So we are becoming more consumer focused, consumer oriented. Our approach has changed how we deal with our employees. More flexibility we give them, the more mobile devices we include, the more tablets go into the market through your associates or sales side individuals, the more we are exposing ourselves. Because a stolen device can really cause damage. There were some issues which you would have probably heard in the US and the UK, where the medical records of a stolen laptop was taken away, and almost similar to our PF, the Medicaid part of it was, the entire information was lost for part of province of UK. So some of these can be really scary or dangerous for the organization. Some of these intentionally, CEO's laptop probably at times has the most vulnerable information, right? If that gets stolen at an airport, can have a huge concerns for organizations. So that's how I believe consumerization is an area where, while we use it from a business benefit or scalability or performance or flexibility to employees and or business partners, we also need to keep in mind that there is something that we need to do to address the security and privacy aspect of it. Cloud, we all know, though there is Cloud Security Alliance, it has its own guidelines. There is no standard per se to define the security norms, and depending on your arrangement, whether you call it platform as a service, whether you pick up only application as a service or whatever model, there can be numerous parameters on which you will have to assess the cloud provider. There is no lock-in. Exit in cloud environment can be sometimes extremely costly, because at the time of entering into an arrangement, we don't think of exit. Exit is not just plain vanilla cut the ribbon and move out. You have huge amount of data lying there. Who owns that data? How do we address that information? We have own amount of log level data which is lying with him. So those answers as of now are very contract driven, how you agree on a contract. There is no standardization. That should not stop us from going for cloud, because I believe that's the future and all of us will have to adopt some or other way. Move more from a capex focused to an opex focused budgeting and investments. But these are the areas which probably will have to spend some time and understand and make very careful choices when you move to cloud environments. Business continuity. All of us are aware. I don't want to spend much time, but I can tell you one sad story of a company, a manufacturing company. They had implemented SAP, and as part of routine backup, they had a fireproof safe in which they used to keep backup tapes. During one such backup rotation program where someone from data center will pick that up, take it to offsite location, that entire process, all tapes happened to be there, and there was a short circuit. They lost everything. So much so that they had to go back to excise records, they have to go back to their auditors to pull information, they have to go back to the plant level information and then reconstruct. It has taken them 3.5 years to come back to some amount of normalcy in their operations. These are real life examples and something which all of us need to take care of. While I have given an IT example, there can be huge similar set of examples from a real business continuity standpoint. We can for a second argue that in a retail sector, if one store goes down, how does it matter to me? But what happens if your supply chain is disrupted? What happens if there is a transportation strike and you have a plant in Baddi or somewhere in Himachal, the entire road is jammed because you have that quick pick up and move, and nothing is happening because there is some shutdown or there is some strike or there is transportation strike or there is electricity failure. You will cripple the whole state, forget crippling your own operations. So some of those aspects where I believe CIOs do have a major role to play to build in a little holistic and systematic thinking, not only in IT and looking at DR aspects, but also considering and focusing on the real business continuity aspect, the impact on the business. If forget IT, if people going down, if facility going down, some safety aspects of it, and how do I do in a crisis situation? Do I have an ability to call and ensure that every person is safe? So a lot of people blame Airtel, for instance, what happened in Mumbai, the fire. But one thing to their credit, in 3.5 hours, they were able to locate every single employee of theirs working in Mumbai and ensure his safety, which itself is a humongous task if you look at the manpower or the whole sales, the whole team that they have at the location. Lastly, the change agenda. We are moving so fast, we are adopting so many technologies, we've been hearing and keep doing so much. On every single day, you would see IT budgets have significantly altered how we would have done 4 years back to how we do now. We talk of projects, we talk of major initiatives. From those initiatives perspective, you need to have security as one major toll gate to ensure that every initiative is assessed from security standpoint. It's very easy for a business to buy a CRM application, use a cloud, Microsoft Dynamics or an SAP CRM on cloud or any other product for that matter. But considering security aspect of it becomes extremely crucial. It's very easy to buy a middle tier application on a cloud environment where you would not even notice that they are on the same NAT, someone else can access your data, you can access someone else's data. So all those aspects, as we involve ourselves into more and more projects, we need to ensure that security becomes one major toll gate in the entire decision making. Any inputs on this? Just one slide and then we'll look at time and then we'll decide how much we can go further. Traditionally, as I kept on saying, that our ISMS or information security is very document focused or procedural focused. The real sense is, for my organization, what is that something which is most critical for me? If you look at a consumer driven organization or a chemical company or a soap company, the formulation of that soap becomes the most critical information. For example, the supplier agreements or the pricing arrangements with suppliers, cost arrangements with suppliers, or whatever you have with distributors, which HLR versus PNG or someone else against someone else, how can you secure? Sometimes our ISMS programs clearly do not focus on this business focused assets. We just focus on having a traditional standard ISMS, and then it becomes extremely difficult to implement controls at that level where it is most critical or vulnerable for the organization. So every security implementation need to start with identifying what is that I have to protect. And every organization can have different things. For someone the costing model will be different, for someone the pricing arrangements, or for someone the formulation data, for someone unpublished balance sheets, especially if you are in a takeover or whatever scenarios. So number of things are, and this is extremely different for different organizations. So we need to start our security journey from there, and not so much from creating an access provisioning process or creating a backup process, etc. Once you have that, then you start addressing others. Why should I? For some organizations, the answers can be very different. A compliance-driven organization will definitely come back and talk of employee records as sensitive because of the privacy and Section 43A of IT Act. Some other organization, a power company, may have a very different way of looking at it. For a consumer company, if they have addressed secondary sales data through various channels and using that for analytics, that can become a very sensitive information for them. For a pharma company, or rather a clinical side of the company, some of the volunteer information that they capture will be very sensitive for them. So what is to be protected, why should be protected, and then you start your journey into how, who will do it, and when to do it. So I'll give you a very classic example. You implement DLP, you go by departments, or you go by blocks of offices to implement DLP. Why would you not look at what are those sensitive assets for me, and I will look at those first, and then I'll start doing an area, because that's where I will get the maximum value of the organization, for the organization. That's where I can demonstrate maximum benefit for the company. So that's a broad journey that I believe we need to have a holistic approach. We need to ensure that we follow from an information sensitivity, not so much on an asset centric approach. So for instance, if I have to do a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, a classic, you will find number of vendors do it, companies do it themselves. If I adopt this approach, I will not go and say that cover this 50 servers this year, cover those 70 servers next year. I may go and challenge him that try and figure out if this information can be stolen. I may go and figure out if I have adopted IDS, IPS, if I have put in a lot of monitoring tools and others, are they really effective in leakage of sensitive information of the business? That approach will probably also determine value or give business a perspective that why it is critical and why it should not be just left over as some security assessment or some security work that organization is doing. That's how you CISOs will start demonstrate to the organization the value of why security is important. Otherwise, you will have to wait till some incident happens, and then only business will wake up. Just wanted to talk about that we no longer can handle security within IT. Especially if you look at OT elements that we spoke of, if you look at the whole business sensitive information element, we need to wake up our senior leadership, we need to wake up our CEOs and ask them that please take a notice of this. Unless you have their blessing, unless we have their buying, it will be very difficult to implement some of these very business focused security programs. I will not spend time on this framework, I just want to spend time on this. So based on my limited last 5 to 6 years of focused information security work, I believe some of these are these 8 activities that an organization must focus on, apart from doing an ISMS and putting policy, procedure, controls, etc. in place. Socializing information security in the organization is extremely critical. Not like doing sessions every location, every once a month I do a session, induction, I do a program on security, but really trying to make sure that I have a continuous program. I'm not sure this is my first visit to Kolkata, but in Mumbai, if you move by local trains, you see there is one ad pasted 8, 9, 10 times You know, you keep seeing that small movie ad in series. There is a science behind that series. Unless human eye looks at something in a 6 to 7, and 7 is a scientific number, repeatedly 7 times particular thing, it does not register. So, and this is how they play on consumer psychology. We need to adopt some of those aspects in our security awareness programs in the organization. Washrooms, elevators, reception areas, the desk programs. There are multiple places where we will have to probably not do a simple web-based program or a classroom session, but make security awareness as a continuous part of the organization. And these are not very expensive things to implement. They're very simple things to implement. Information security organization is my next point. This is not the organization that I have a CISO, I have a security compliance guy, I have a security operations guy. But really, what is the business involvement in information security? How can I get business to buy in? How can I make sure that my finance, admin, legal, HR, and the marketing, sales, manufacturing, all those functions have a representation and understanding of what they need to do in information security? Privacy as an area is extremely critical. Though India's IT Act 43A does not have so much teeth in it, but wait for privacy bill to come in, wait for your global counterparts or your business partners enforcing privacy on you, and some of these, if you embed this right up front, it will be much easier to reach that journey. You know, the whole concept of privacy is a fundamental right of a human being, as it exists in EU. Against a consumer-driven privacy in US, India is trying to adopt privacy as a fundamental right, the EU model in India. Though we understand it will take much longer, but the earlier we start, the earlier it will be, easier it will be to adopt and go on that journey.
Sorry, I didn't understand this. What is embed privacy?
So, a lot of times when we do a security as information security policy procedures, the whole structure, privacy is nowhere in the picture. So, for instance, a classic control. When I hope all of us are IT, so we can understand. I have a production system, I have a test environment. A lot of times, for testing purpose, copy production data into test. Imagine it's a payroll system. Apart from confidentiality, privacy is a key aspect of it, and some of those aspects we need to take notice of. When I am implementing a new system, am I putting in PIA, kind of privacy impact assessment process? If my vendors are accessing my production data, if I have an outsourced service provider, will I show my salaries, will I show my business sensitive records to them? So those aspects I'm saying embed in right upfront while we design the entire security framework. Monitor security threats. As we are talking of various cyber security attacks, and how much time I have? 2 minutes. So we spoke of a lot of cyber attacks and everything, all of us being vulnerable to that. You would notice incremental investments in prevention technologies like IDS, IPS, gateways, blah blah blah, will not derive so much value, because you will never be able to go ahead of hacker. He will always be 2 steps ahead of you. So there is better return on investment if we have investment in detection technologies. So can I have some kind of a SIEM or stroke any kind of a monitoring internal big data platform or whatever simple tool that we can adopt to identify if something goes wrong? At least I am alerted and I am able to take action on it. We have spoken of BYOD. We cannot ignore disruptive technologies. For many of your businesses may not be relevant now, but in future some of these are massive changes they will bring into the organization. So I was reading a story of Tesla Motors. Their car can itself download a software and upgrade itself. It can book an appointment at a service center on its own and arrange for a pickup. So these are the level people are going. Or a tractor company trying to embed a soil measurement techniques and checking on weather through online to make sure that how should I plow and what kind of agricultural plants and how should I handle that entire farm. So this is level world will go in some time and some years. Let's not ignore and figure out if our business is trying to get to somewhere on that sort, how can IT support them to enable that and implement security at technology layer. So some of these things which we looked at from a target standpoint or from RSA standpoint or Sony for instance or Stuxnet, We do policy procedures a good job of it, we do vulnerability assessment, penetration, all of us do a good job of it, but we don't do a great job of hardening our systems. The classic case is FTP from internal to outside, because our focus is something coming inside. So can I ensure that whatever security policies I am developing, my password policy does not only apply to SAP, it also applies to the AIX box. It also applies to the databases that I have or small other peripheral legacy systems I have. So how can I ensure that my policy statements are broken down into manageable technology level, as we call minimum baseline standards? That's where you can start deriving implementation of some of this, and you will really be successful on that front. Any questions?
Would an audit throughout the weak points, would that be a beginning?
Yes, it can be a beginning. The bigger challenge I feel is a lot of times the scoping of an audit becomes a little, according to me, a lot of times we don't do a good job of actually doing a proper scoping. Therefore, you will sometimes auditor come and say, this was not in my scope, I only looked at this. So an holistic approach on that, using someone, but even building within IT a small compliance team will actually go a long way in managing this. So as a group, probably you can share some resources, but having that level of holistic program which runs into multiple years, maybe that's something which can derive value from that. Of course, you will have to engage specialists at times. For OT, you will have to go to someone who understands the Siemens or various IBM or whatever products. But having that holistic program from a compliance standpoint would definitely help.
Carried out a comprehensive IT security audit for a power utility? I mean, essentially
not
covering both the elements.
So we have done a lot of work on that in oil and gas companies in India.
Not for a power utility.
Power and utilities, we are working, but I can't divulge whether it will really go through. But at global level, we almost can say that between our Poland team and the UK team, there's a phenomenal amount of knowledge base across all platforms used globally.
In the
power utility sector. For want of, sorry. If you are able to take something back and use it in our organizations, I'll be very happy about that.
Any material related to this? Do you have anything written?
So I have sent you one of our survey report, and I'll definitely share this, and probably I'll work with Minal to probably have some more literature circulated. Thank you so much for your time.